Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. All right. Well, I have Melissa Kaye with me today on Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. I'm super excited to have you here. Melissa, you and I met through a women's business group. And when we were on the pre-call together, I just thought, oh my Lord, this woman has such an amazing story. And it's a story, I guess, of purpose. That's what I wanted to really get into today. I mean, you're doing so many things. You've done so many things. You're going to share that part of your story. But the journey has always been purpose driven. And I loved that. And so I cannot wait for you to share your story today. So I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Give us a little bit of a backstory on who you are. And then we'll get into the full details.
Sure. Well, first off, I'd like to say that thank you for inviting me into your space. I'm so excited for our conversation today. Last night, I was meditating on what kind of value can I bring? Some women that I've never had the privilege of meeting, may hear this, and what do I want them to walk away with? And so I am such a firm believer in the power of women and the goodness of women. Like there's just so much in us. And at this stage in our life, I'm 53. I don't see any slowing down or stopping. I feel like the rest of my life has all been college for now. It's just been all these learnings, and I'm resilient now, and I know who I am. And now we get to go out there and be. So I'm the founder of a nonprofit. It's called Elev8 Villages, and we're going to be building villages all across the country, the US and Canada, for foster youth who've aged out of foster care. So a lot of people don't know about them when they age out. They've been passed around their whole life. They haven't really had that parental, when your parents teach you wisdom and they teach you how nurturing is, and they haven't had any of that. At the very best, they maybe have survived and not had a lot of trauma. Most of them have gone through trauma. They have PTSD. Like it's just, and then at 18, they're just said, okay, bye, go live your life. And they have no support system. So our villages will be tiny homes. So it's just a perfect amount of space for somebody starting out and helps them not get so focused on the materialism of the day, but how do I create a life that I want, not the stuff that I want. So they'll be in tiny homes. We'll make sure they finish their education. We'll put them into jobs. We have businesses that will be on or adjacent to that they'll be working in so that they can learn those job skills. And those businesses will be paying them a livable wage as well as profit to keep the community going long term. So there's lots of facets to the village. It's just wraparound services for them. And so it's a huge thing. So instead of getting tied into a lease and spending money, I realized you can travel around and live in other people's homes and have the day free.
Loved this part of your story. I can contain myself because I've heard of this too. And in fact, a friend of mine has sent me a couple like, hey, you're traveling everywhere. Why don't you go just be a house sitter or like a pet sitter or whatever? And I thought, what the heck is all of this? And then I stumbled on you and I was like, okay, maybe this is the universe talking to me or something. So, but okay, so let's talk about your community that you're building first. So so tiny homes is not just for foster kids or what, I mean, it is a bit of a movement. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a big movement. They tend to be people who are minimalist. They're thinking, they've kind of rethought life as to like the highly over
consumerism and consumption.
There you go. The consumerism and consumption has just they've hit the wall with that and been like, you know what? So much of my energy is going to my stuff. I don't have money or time or energy. I'm just taking care of my stuff all day. I'm protecting all my stuff all day. And they're like, life's worth more. So they downsize significantly and they live in a tiny house. Tiny home living is sort of going the way to where you're living halfway inside, halfway outside. So big porches. Sometimes they'll put some units in with like a walkway through. Some people get property and they might, like a couple may have their tiny home and then their teenage children each have their own tiny home on the property. So lots of different things, but it's all about, let's be more thoughtful about what we want out of life. What are the experiences? What are the relationships? Let's put our value into human things instead of consumers things.
So Okay, so tiny homes, I do know this. There's some beautiful tiny homes, and I get what you're saying, that sort of indoor, outdoor living. So you got into this movement of like what, back in
21,
2021?
21
Okay.
or
Okay. Okay.
2022. Yeah.
And so what was the original intent of sort of looking at that movement?
Well, I was coaching at the time, and I was trying to build my coaching practice, and I needed some extra income. So I found a job selling tiny homes virtually. It was like you worked with lots of different builders. And so I learned so much about it. And at the time, I was living in a probably 2,000 square foot home all alone. I've never had children, not married. And in order to have that nice bathroom and the nice kitchen, you have to have a big, huge house that's way too big. Whereas in tiny homes, the tiny homes aren't necessarily inexpensive per foot. They're about having exactly what you need and nothing more, being thoughtful about the space, not having a lot of wasted space around you. So you can have the luxury bathroom and the luxury kitchen, and then a small place to sleep and a small place to sit, because how much time do we really spend in our bedroom when we're there, we're sleeping? So anyway, I love the mindset of it. And that's how I learned about that. And was very excited to one day live tiny.
Yeah, and I actually have a question about that, because as you talk about that, I think about what we sort of kicked this podcast off around, like just purpose, right? And so I wonder if we are in this sort of consumerism and consumption period of our lives because we're trying to fill a void, right? And so when we look at these tiny homes, maybe that's where it sort of pushes you to something bigger, because you can't consume and purchase a bunch of things because there's just no space for it. Oh, and I think it pushes you to go out and really look at your purpose, you know? So what were you doing before the tiny home? So we're going to go kind of in reverse order of your life. So before the tiny homes,
I was, well, beside the coaching, but prior to that, I was selling Mercedes-Benz automobiles.
Okay. Okay. Where were you located at that time?
I was in Tennessee at that time.
Okay. Okay. So when you and I got on our call, we met and you talked about having sort of this aha moment that sent you on this 20-year journey, I guess, maybe 15-year journey. Talk a little bit about that moment.
So that's taking us way back, not way, 10 years ago. So 10 years
Okay,
ago,
not too long ago.
yeah, I was married at the time. I had 3 businesses, thriving businesses. I was a competitive ballroom dancer. I was traveling all over the country dancing and having my business. I had a book. I was doing speaking and book gigs, and I was just so busy, and my life was great. Like, I don't want to take anything away from it. I learned a lot in that period of my life, and I did a lot. But I was in Monaco in Europe at the European Open Dance Championship, and I had just won, and it was one of the big goals in my life. I wanted to win the U.S. show dance championship, which I had won the year before. The European dance, had won that. And I was standing there. I remember I had the medal around my neck. I had this lovely gown on. My hair was up, and I was overlooking the Mediterranean. I was on this like platform. It was marble. It was just beautiful. And I was just so grateful and kind of recounting my day. And then the thought hit me that this is the best day for the rest of my life. Like, this life wasn't going to get any better than a snapshot of this day. And instead of feeling happy, I felt sad. I was like, this is it? Like, well, it's fun. It didn't seem enough. It didn't seem like if I left the world wasn't in any long-term ways better for me having been there. There was a few beautiful moments here and there. I had a hearing aid practice so more people could hear better. But other than that, I was like, this isn't what I want to be about. And of course, there's other things going on in the background. And I was just like, no, I got to go figure this out. And I was reflecting about how, in our 20s and 30s, we spend so much time meeting everybody else's expectations for us, whether we know it or not. What did our parents want? What does the guy that we're in love with want? What does our society want? Who am I supposed to be? And we're working so hard to fulfill that. And I think I was 43 at the time. And I think it was just my moment where I was like, I'm ready to chuck it all, because I want to wake up every day, not with a list of to-dos that are impossible and somehow get a medal at the end of the day. I want to wake up knowing that everything I do today matters, like really matters. That a legacy is not about what I leave. A legacy is about what I build. And I wanted to build something a lot more significant than what I had previously built.
Right. So you were doing the ballroom dancing, plus you also had your hearing aid business. And I think you wrote a book too on that as well, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, it was called Hear Your Life. I was actually at a speaking event. The speaker was saying, are you living your purpose? And I'd never felt I was. Like through all the great stuff I did, and I did some humanitarian work, like I was always knowing there was a big thing for me. And so I did everything I did at the highest level. And when that speaker was saying that, they were like, what is it you need to do? And I'm like, it just came to me that night. I need to write a book. And so back then in the hearing loss industry, there was lots of misinformation. And so I wrote a book, and it ended up to be stories of my patients, like how they couldn't hear and then how hearing made their life so much more meaningful. And it was a great writing a book, like sitting down and putting your thoughts and your life and your heart on paper is really substantial. And I'm glad I did it.
Right.
And it was my way to try to get the industry to be more purposeful. I think now that I think back about it, it felt like such a commodity instead of actually focusing on the lives that it made better. And, on the high side, on the money side of the industry, it was getting ridiculous and I was frustrated. And so writing the book was kind of my solution. And so it was only 3 years later that I left the industry completely.
Okay. So you're standing there, you're looking over the Mediterranean Sea. I've been there, so I know exactly what your view is looking like. And you decide, hey, there's more. So at the time you were doing the business, you were ballroom dancing, and you were married as well, correct? Yeah. So then take us from there.
So I went back, and my marriage wasn't perfect. At this point, I just went back and filed for divorce, put the house on the market, put my businesses on the market. One of the businesses was a ballroom studio, gave that to my husband and said, I'm leaving.
Gave it to your what? So your husband, tell us, it's kind of a sad thing, but it's like, it's kind of a funny thing. So you literally just ripped the Band-Aid off.
I did. And I'll tell you, there was some grieving that I probably should have done that I didn't do at the right times. And I've had to learn some lessons over the last decade. But looking back, I think I did it the way I had to do it because it's so hard to let go. And when you have a lot of things you have to let go, if I had let go of them one at a time, I really don't know that I could have done it. And so I chose just rip off the Band-Aid, change it all, and go out, forge a new path. The path I was on, I didn't want to stay on that path. Saying it in this kind of time interval makes it feel like it was just everything was perfect. And then I just tossed it all. There's always those little things, those little discomforts, I wasn't being fulfilled. The marriage had its issues. We'd been working on it for a couple of years. It just wasn't working out. Like when I asked him for the divorce, for instance, he said, oh, I knew it was coming. So yeah, I tried not to make too much collateral damage. But for me, it was time to step into a different future.
Yeah, no. And I think that's so brave because I do know there's a saying, something like, we stay in the situation we know because we fear the situation that we don't know. And so we would rather live with the hell we know than, potentially risk another move into that same sort of situation. Right. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really brave of you. So, okay. So then you left and I know you did a lot of soulful work. You took a couple of courses. Talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I did. When I left, I really thought it was like 1 year. I was like, okay, I have 1 year to figure this out and then I'll be in my next thing. It's been a decade, Lynette. And let me tell you, I have never been more at peace, more inspired, or happier. The journey I've taken by this world standards, people would think things or judge things or fear things. And I've just been like, this is the most amazing journey. When you go and say, I'm going to chase after that thing that's been eluding me my whole life. Like I am going to do that. The lessons, the universe puts so many lessons in front of you that you get to learn. And it's spectacular.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that because I don't think in my mind, I don't think that you're ever fixed. I don't think this is about fixing ourselves. And from what you're saying, it's been a 10-year journey of just progression and healing. That's the way I think you've got to take it. I mean, I'm on my own little journey in that way. So it really I feel like I'm really connecting with your story, because sometimes and I think a lot through masculine energy. And so it's always like, okay, what do I got to get done? I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. And that's just not, I'm working with somebody and she's like teaching me how to, work more from here, from your heart centered, and I think that's what I'm hearing from you, is really kind of putting it together. And so you told me that you did, like a bit of a life mapping, book. A life book. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, I love Life Book. So it breaks your life into 12 categories.
Okay.
And it starts foundational, things that I am in 100% control of in my life. For instance, health and fitness, emotions, spirituality. And then it goes into things that draw other people in, social life, career, finances, and then your big life vision. So you take it in chapters, these 12 chapters of your life, and you think very deeply about each thing. What do I believe about it? Do I want to keep those beliefs, or would I like to have different beliefs about it? And then what do I want to believe? What do I want the future in this category to look like? And what are some things I need to change today in order to get closer there? So you write this whole book. Every year I rewrite my life book, and I should say edit, not rewrite. I edit it a little bit. And that's what steered me to coaching, because I realized that what gives me so much happiness is when I'm able to touch someone else and create positive change. Right. Obviously they're the ones that have to be inspired and change, but what do I have to give? So coaching was that thing that I thought it was. As we're on this journey, and I want the ladies listening to know, it's going to be messy and it's not going to be perfect. And if you wait until it's perfect, then you're never going to do it. Because what you think, like, if this is your reality today, then you just make these couple switches and then you're like, okay, this is what I want. But the journey takes you way over here, and you don't know that. You can't know what you don't know. So you just have to step out and learn one step at a time. And so Lifebook was just one of those things that guided me as a coach. I knew about the foster system and the issues. And so I was like, I'm going to give value as a coach, and I'm going to create all these programs for these youth who've aged out of foster care. And as I delved into building those programs, it was so clear to me that they don't need coaching. They need a roof over their head. They need to be safe. They need to not be trafficked. They need to not go to jail. Like, they need way more than coaching. So that then took me on the path I'm on.
Okay. So you thought, had you been working with youth before that, or you just...
Yes. So back when I had my hearing aid practice and the dancing, I was doing a lot of volunteer work with like at-risk youth. And I had a foster daughter as well for like a year.
Okay. So then you're taking this, you're writing, you're putting yourself through this life book, and then you're thinking to yourself, these are these steps I'm taking to get clear on my life. Hey, this would be great for youth. But at the end of the day, we know, right? What you just said, that's not what they're needing right now. They need love, nurturing, and just like help. Like, just help me. I don't need like, I would love to like set my vision for myself and do all these things and how I want it to look, but I don't even know what my potential is. So, okay. So then you had this aha moment and realized, hey, so this life coaching isn't going to work for them. So then what did you do?
Well, I was given a vision, 3:24 in the morning, wide awake. And I knew, like, I looked around the room. I thought somebody was there. It was so vivid. It was like watching a movie. I remember every frame of it, not like a dream that's sort of obscure. It was a very clear vision of the village, of the youth, of myself in the village. And I just, for like 2 days, walked around in a daze. And I was like, well, that's it. And so since then, I've just been learning, and I'm putting a lot of thought and research into how would this work? Like, what are all the nuts and bolts and logistics that have to be worked out? Where do I get the money from? All of that. So for the last 2 years now, we've been building the business plan, finding funders. Soon I'll be going out on a nationwide tour to take a tiny home around the country and talk to more people and find the right location for the first and future villages.
So what you did then on your sort of back to that your life book and then trying to get into this coaching, you also were, you were doing your Mercedes-Benz sales, you were also looking at the tiny homes, and that's where the connection is, because I think that's what we need to understand as we get older in our 50s. I know a lot of women and men would think, oh, I don't have any skills to transfer into something different. And I think if you just take a look at your path along the way, a lot of that you can bring forward. And I think that's what you've done. You said, okay, well, I was originally doing these tiny home sales. It wasn't for any youth. It was just tiny home sales. And then you had this vision one night and, it came to you like a massive aha moment where, hey, I see a connection here. This is what they really need. These at-risk youth really need. They need, it to be able to be in an environment that they can, maybe take care of themselves, but it's not overly overwhelming. And it's not a youth home. It's not a group home, it's
A group home or an apartment in the middle of the worst area of town.
exactly. And so so that's the connection, right? That's how, often we are on, you talked about it being on the path, the universe just starts putting things in your place. And hence the reason why I think the message is so clear. It's on every one of my podcasts. It's just take that step forward, because the universe will bring what you need as you're taking those steps. And it may put you to the left, it may put you to the right, or it might just keep forging forward. But that's leading through your intuition and through this sort of sense of guidance. And I know you have a very strong faith, and I love that. And I think everybody has their own form of belief and self-belief and sort of a higher purpose, I guess, if you will, or higher calling. And so I love that you had that real aha awakening. And so so you have this idea, this vision, and you think to yourself, oh my God, how am I going to get started? So did you reach out to the tiny home people? Did you what were your first couple of steps to get going?
Oh, that's a great question. It was so overwhelming at first. And I think for a month or two, I thought about it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a 5-year business plan. If I save enough money, I can get a little piece of land and put some tiny homes. And that's where, for me, like God was just like, would you stop? And so I went through like a 2 or 3 month period where I just had to learn surrender, or a parigraha. Let go, stop grabbing, stop thinking you can control it, stop thinking that you can do it. Like there's a bigger presence, for God, universe, whatever that higher being is, that spiritual world that's so much bigger than we are. And we can't understand it, but we can go in faith through it. So walking into that faith and going, okay, well, when I was sitting in that, like, where do I start and how do I do this? Because I have a business background, I just started writing a business plan. And as I started, like just the big chunks of it, the crazy thing, Lynette, is that everything I would write, I'd be like, that's why back when I was 24, I did that random thing. Oh, that's why I met that person. That's why I had this experience. Like I could tell you everything in my life that seemed insignificant, and all of them I called the great so that. They all happened so that I would be the person I am today, ready and willing to do the work that's ahead. And that was a great realization. But I had to let go.
Like, why exactly? So why am I doing this? I'm doing it so that something else will form, and this is such a real, I love all the messages that are coming out on your journey, because it really is a true testament to, like you said, just surrender and getting to this place of, okay, whatever it's going to bring me, it's going to bring me. I mean, it's still done with intention. I mean, obviously, right?
Absolutely.
So you write your business plan. And then what do? You put it under your armpit and you go out and like try to find some money? Or, like, what's happening now?
Well, I decided the next thing was I needed to talk about it. So at this point, my house sitting had taken me to Nashville. Actually, a friend of mine in Nashville was like, come, oh my gosh, what a great journey. Come live with me for a month. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so in Nashville for 30, 40 days, I networked like crazy. I did every networking event I could. I taught everybody who wanted a one-on-one, I did. And it was so that I could learn to talk about Elev8 Villages, talk about the needs of these youth. And in doing so, listen to like what people were hearing and what questions they had and what fears they had and the things that I hadn't thought about. And so then I could like go back to the drawing board and be like, that was a good observation. What would I do about that? So I had thought about a lot of it, but there was more to think about, and learning to talk about it also as if it was done. Like the big goals, the big dreams, the big things that are going to happen in life, you're not going to get from none to there in one step. So you have to start visioning it. You have to start bringing into the world what is not seen now, but will exist. Sort of the spirituality there, but it's there. I know it's there. And I'm walking the path in order to make it appear for everyone else. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you have to move with that sort of conviction towards these kinds of big, life-changing, world-changing purposes.
I know what you're saying about the spirituality, because a lot of work that I have been doing over the past maybe 3 or 4 months is looking deeper. If you're not speaking like it already exists, then the universe doesn't know what to give you. It's keeping your energy high, your frequency high. And there's just so much proof out there that when people do that, when they're thinking like it's already in existence, when they're acting like it's already in existence, when they're speaking like it's already in existence, it happens. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can sit back and like, okay, universe, show up and let's get it done. It's really, you have to put the actions in place. But that's where, if you already are thinking, feeling, you're doing, and therefore it starts to come. So
I think it's part of like the universe's way of, I don't want to say testing you, but pushing to make sure, like, do you really want this? Because in talking about it, it made it more real for me. It also committed my footsteps, because now I have followers. Now I have donors. Now I have people going, what's next? And so instead of being distracted and going, oh, wow, gosh, I maybe need some money right now, or maybe I'll get lease a new apartment. And all of a sudden, 7 years from now, I look back and go, oh yeah, I was going to do that really cool thing and start these tiny home villages for youth. Instead, because I talked it into reality, I don't have any other choice, and the universe has opened doors left and right to make it happen, but I'm not going to say it's been easy. I'm not going to say it's been without resistance or without fear and I had a friend of mine when I was talking, I was on a bad day, and he said, did you think it would be easy? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And he's like, but it has kept me on that path that I could see. I mean, I can think back to other things in my life that I thought were great ideas, but I didn't commit to them so wholeheartedly. So, you just think like, oh, wow, why didn't I do that? And so in talking about it, it's committing myself to not being able to chicken out, not being able to back out, not being able to make an excuse. And the path may still shift it a little bit from what I thought it is in 2022. Like it just gets amazing that this journey, and 10 years from now, I'm going to look back and it's all going to make sense. But what I do today, I have to do in faith and in like logic of, okay, what's the next thing I can do? And what's the next thing? And I did find funders, and we're just, we're waiting for some of that to come in. And obviously fundraising is going to be a ongoing thing forever with this type of work. And it's all exciting. And I have learned, like I went through a whole few months where I learned about sociocracy, and a whole few months that I learned about nonviolent communication, things that I didn't know before I started the journey that are going to play huge into the success of these youth's lives. But if I didn't have this time and space of surrender and, okay, I'm not going to go down another path, I am staying on this path, those lessons are just lined up for me. And it's all going to unfold exactly how it's supposed to. And I have 1,000% peace about that.
I love the confidence, the energy, it is going to happen. And I think, one thing that I think when you were talking, I was just thinking like, you could have let that inner critic, that gremlin, I like to call that my inner critic, my gremlin, really sort of take over, right? Because, did you think you weren't going to have bad days? Of course you're going to have bad days. And your gremlin is going to say, yeah, see, I told you, and you should probably just give up and go back to finding a more stable job and work your 9 to 5 and all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate that. One final thing on the tiny home, the mission that you're on, you said you're about to take a tour. So tell us a little bit about the tour. What does that look like?
Yeah. So the tour, if in business terms, you would think of it as a marketing tour. But when I thought about Elev8 Village, it's way bigger than me. It's way bigger than one person. So in addition to needing funds, I'm going to need people. I need people who are as passionate and in love with this mission as I am. And maybe it's because I'm in my 50s. Maybe it's, I don't know, but I like people, like I like Zoom. Thank goodness for Zoom. It saved me this last couple of years. But if I can get in person and hug somebody and talk to them face to face, knee to knee, eyeball to eyeball, now I really know who you are as a person so that we bring the right people into the Elevate community. And also, I need to be out there in communities. Is this the community that's going to support this type of a village and show up for these kids and not think, oh, they're bad kids, they're trouble kids, but like, wow, I could have an influence and help. At 18, 19, their life could go this way or that way. And imagine if you could be there and help it go in a positive way. And so the tour for me is a way to just talk to more people about this, really be staunched in the communities to understand what's making them tick. What does the city leaders want 10 years from now? What is their heart for youth or not? Because long term, when there's, tens, dozens of villages, they can be anywhere. But in the beginning, we need the right place so we get all of the structures correct. And then as these kids grow and age up, they're going to some of them will go out in the world and do their thing and want a big house. Some of them are going to want to stay within the ecosystem and go be leaders of future villages. But this beginning part is marketing, making sure people know who we are, what we're doing, finding out what I don't know, finding great locations. We're going to do a YouTube docuseries on it. So it has that marketing leg, but it all just has the learning leg to it too.
So one final thing. So we talked a little bit about house sitting and, taking care of dogs and stuff. So where are you right now? Tell us a little bit about where you are now and that story, because that's also a good story.
Yeah. So after a few months of dog sitting in different places each month, I kept getting a call from a gentleman down in Palestine, Texas, which is between Houston and Dallas for people who know Texas. And he had 7 dogs. And I was at a house at the time he first called me with 2 big dogs. And I was like, there is no way I could do 7. So I kept telling him no. And then a house that I had just canceled last minute. And then he called 5 minutes later. This is how things work when you're on purpose. He called 5 minutes later. And I was like, so did you ever find that house sitter for whatever month? And he said, no. And I said, well, I could be there in 27 hours. I think I was in Virginia and I had to get to Texas. And he said, head here now. I'll pay for your hotels and your gas. And I was like, all right, I'm on my way. So I got here. It was supposed to be a month and I was hoping for 3 months and it lasted 3 months and then 4 months. Now I've been here for a year, almost a year and a half. And the great thing is I'm settled in. I have I have the dog care down. And let me tell you, these 7 dogs are the best. They're the sweetest dogs. They're old and they're just happy to be fed and get some love. And we play games in the afternoon. It's an easy thing, but I'm on this beautiful property that's so peaceful. And it's just been this super alone spiritual journey for me. In addition to the business journey and having the time to do all that, I have the security to be in one spot. The little money is coming in, I get to save or put into Elev8 Villages, but I've gotten to set up all of my business systems, all of the legal parts. I'm right now I'm working on getting sales tax exempt in every state in the US. It's just time, and it's time I wouldn't have if I had to work a 9 to 5. So blessings to this property and to Mr. Delgado, who just, has opened his home to me, and he travels in and out once in a while, but he just works 340 days a year. So I just have this huge, and I just, I keep it up for them and I try to do what they would want. He lost his wife, so there's nobody to, take care of the home front. So
yeah,
I take care of it and take care of his dogs and have all this time to work on the future.
I know. And I think that was just sort of the cherry on top of this whole story, is that universe again delivers when you need it. So
Yeah.
Melissa, you've been a wonderful guest. I love your story. I wish you all the best on your next steps on your tour. I hope that you just knock it out of the park, and I'm sure you will, because it really feels like it's going to be a big success. So good luck with you.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
So it's just so when I was thinking about this, I'm I want women who have this lifetime of experience. We've learned how to be resilient. We've learned how to survive. We've learned everything we've learned in 50 plus years. And I overheard a lady the other day around in our age bracket, and she was talking to someone and she's like, oh, I'm just so ready to coast. I just want to sit home and do nothing and coast. And it just made my heart so sad, because we're missing out on all of her brilliance. Like, imagine the things she could do in the world. And so I want to encourage your listeners, like, don't be okay to coast. Like, you could coast or you could create something really extraordinary. And so I just want to leave everybody with that. If there's something extraordinary inside of you, even if it's just the teeniest seed, let it grow. We need you. Our world needs this nurturing, intelligent, loving women to do what we're here to do.
What a great message and a great ending to the podcast. So thank you, Melissa. That was just wonderful. I love that story. So thank you so much. And I'm going to continue to see you obviously in our business group, and I'll continue to watch your journey. So thank you.
Lynette, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.